Hey guys, and welcome to a Dowie mirror match going on between myself and the mighty Way here on River and Maxon. Now, this was part of a best of 3 that I had in the recent Paint Wars tournament, which was a load of good fun. And you may have seen this battle on live stream already, but if you haven't, it is the ultimate battle of Ultimate Destiny, as Dwarf faces off against Dwarf, which is some pretty gruesome stuff. A bit of a strange matchup in general. You tend to see both the Dwarfs attempt to obliterate each other from long range. So instead, we've gone for something a little bit different, and that is a close combat rush build with some range options for good measure. So we have a mixture of Longbeards and Dwarf warriors dotted all the way along the front line, of course coming in with the great weapons. This is to give themselves the best amount of armor piercing to take down those pesky Dowie units. In the reserve as well, we do have 1, 2, 3, 4 units here of Thunderers. Of course, their armor piercing going to be absolutely vital in taking down the thick armor of my opponent. We do have a really cool leadership core as well, coming in with the mightiest 2 warriors in the universe. We have Felix, one of the greatest human combatants, and certainly quite useful with his anti-infantry armor-piercing attacks. I certainly expect him to do pretty good up against the infantry, coming with Help in Hand and Blood Oath as well to help support Grombrindle, the White Dwarf, who has had to step in here in this Dwarf dispute to settle the grudges once and for all. Of course, coming in with Flash Bomb, Foe Seeker, and Grombrindle has no fear. So, pretty simple stuff, very basic build, but we have a secret weapon, and that secret weapon is the Giant Slayer. Now, I know what you're thinking, this must be a pretty weird pick. Giant Slayers are anti-large, kind of monster-killing beasts. And, you know, we're going against Dowie. They're not exactly the tallest of folk, so that anti-large certainly isn't going to come in handy, but they do have a really nice niche here, in my humble opinion, and that is because these guys come in with a whopping 40 speed. And when you're coming up against other Dowie, that basically makes them cavalry. They also have pretty damn decent weapon strength as well. Coming in here with 33 armor piercing is certainly impressive and will allow them to go toe-to-toe with a lot of their enemy Dwarf warriors. Being unbreakable helps as well, and we have 2 units of these bad boys, one on either flank, one of which over here is running through the trees and, of course, is currently hidden. And their main goal is to get into the back lines, shut down Thunderers and artillery pieces. Now for my opponent here, in the front line, he's gone incredibly cheap and cheerful. No Longbeards for him, just Dwarf warriors with great weapons dotted all the way along. And then a ton of Thunderers as well. In fact, outnumbering my Thunderers, coming in with 5 units total. And that's because he's spent most of his money here on these cannons. So we do have 1, 2, 3, 4 cannons. So certainly outranging my Dwarfs, although lacking in the eliteness in the front line. We also have a nice hero core for my opponent, coming in with a mighty Thane, who is completely naked. Of course, he's wearing a ton of armor, but no items or abilities, as well as a naked Belegar here, normally considered the best pick in this matchup, although I actually personally quite like the White Dwarf. And we have Felix as well, once again coming in with Blood Oath, but no Help in Hand on this Felix. Very sneakily as well in the very far corners, much to my dismay as I did not spot these guys. We do have Ulthra Raiders, Regiment of Renowned Rangers, and another unit as well hidden in the trees over in the distance of just the basic Rangers with great weapons, of course. Going to certainly allow them to sneak into the back lines, shut down Thunderers and the like. And here we go, guys, the slowest battle of all time. Well, not the slowest battle, actually. I suppose Vampire Counts versus Vampire Counts would normally be a bit worse, but Dwarfs trudging towards Dwarfs normally isn't too good, and we are going to have to take a bit of a hammering on the way in. You can see Longbeards with great weapons being focused down. Good target management there by Way, trying to pin in my most elite infantry. As you can see, the Slayers quite happily making their way down the flank, taking a tiny bit of damage here, but aiming to wrap through the forest and pit pressure either onto the Thunderers or the cannon crews. And it looks like the entire Dwarf formation is starting to realign here and to prepare for battle, as I do go for a bit of a flank overload on this right-hand side, sending the majority of my kind of tough troops around this way, as well as a lot of the Thunderers. Going to be trying to punch through and get into that back line as quickly as possible. Giant Slayers still remaining hidden in the trees are looping up and around, aiming for those cannons, but you can see the Thunderers do start to roar, and we take even more of a pounding on the charge in here. Longbeards and Dwarf warriors alike getting absolutely hammered by cannon and Thunderer fire, and they're going to be reaching into the engagement here with a nice little charge bonus, in fairness, of 18. Could be worse. It's going to help them do some okay damage to these Dwarfs, but we are now outnumbered and pretty bloody all round. But in the left-hand flank here, you can see the Giant Slayers are starting to progress. On the right-hand side as well, they are pushing forward. And the Dwarf Warriors are finally getting into good engagements. My fun was a little bit slow here. Have let my kind of fellows get shot a little bit. But now are starting to focus fire. 2 units on a unit of Thunderers. And we're doing that in 2 different clumps to try and push them back as much as possible, as Longbeards do start to dart into the back line. Dwarf Warriors have now spotted the Giant Slayers, or probably most likely spot them a little bit earlier, and are desperately trying to run back to help protect the cannon crew. But as I said earlier, Giant Slayers with that whopping 40 speed compared to the normal 28 are certainly going to be able to get into the back line. Thunderers desperately lacing some shots into the secondary unit, but it's certainly better to reach the cannons before it can be put down. Thunder Fire is now slowly starting to add up, doing some pretty decent damage, although we've taken a bit of a hammering in the front lines. So what we're going to be doing with our flank overload here is crashing in and kind of swooping up around from the main force and slamming into the back. It's going to allow us to break this pocket of strength, and then all of a sudden we have 2 units flooding into the back lines. Felix is going to do a similar thing as well, pushing down into the centre pocket to charge these Dwarf Warriors in the rear and help out the Longbeards in the front line, whilst Grombrindle charges into the Thunder line in the back. The hero core of my opponent is desperately trying to chase down a Grombrindle where possible, and Longbeards have pushed all the way into the back line, and you can see the Giant Slayers are now feasting upon the cannon crews, butchering them to the last Dowie. The Ranger Corps is nearly here though, and they're certainly about to put a whipping on these Thunderers if they can indeed engage in combat. The White Dwarf is caught here by the Hero Corps, but very wisely drops the Flash Bomb and starts to leg it as quickly as possible. Heroically retreat, I mean, not leg it, he's a dwarf, as the Thunderers now start to pour fire into the slowed Felix. But my own Felix is also taking an absolute beating from Thunderer fire. In the back lines, you can see the Giant Slayers clearing up already 1 cannon crew, or in fact 2 cannon crews, have floated over onto the next ones. They have pretty decent mass as well for dwarfs. As you can see, they're a little bit taller than their fellows, and that does allow them just to push through and to hop on top of the cannon crew to deal with them. In the back line, we do as well have some Longbeards running around and being kited by Thunderers. As long as they're not, shooting key targets, it's not too bad. All 4 Raiders have managed to get into the back line, and it looks like Felix on Felix action is unfortunately not going my Felix's way, as he is forced off and starting to run for the hills here. And we are going to pull back with our Thunderers before turning to re-engage where possible. We also managed to drag this unit of Rangers through a unit of Dwarf Warriors before escaping here to the relative safety of this centre pocket. The last of the cannons have now been dealt with, although some Thunderers are starting to shoot into the Giant Slayers, who have managed to gain chevrons here after dealing such damage, and are now going to be able to chase down these Thunderers. And unlike my other Dwarven kind, these guys are not going to be able to outrun the Giant Slayers. As you can see, Grombrindle has no fear, is currently popped. We're going to be able to catch up to the Thunderers and deal the killing blows to them. Thunderers have turned to engage, trying to focus down Felix where possible. He is just a manlin and therefore rather squishy. We have more Thunderers as well starting to rally on the far side here, getting ready to unleash some shots, although the All-Far Raiders are on the prowl. However, Felix has rallied, so they should be able to get back there and help out a little bit. Looks like we have some rallying Longbeards as well in the distance. And once again, Giant Slayers simply outpacing the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons to shut down the Thunderers and keep them moving. And over on this flank, it is a similar situation with Thunderers going down to the mighty axes of the Slayer Oved. The Longbeards are now pushing into the Thunderers with the help of Grombrindle, who is going to be chasing them down, wielding his mighty axe indeed. Coming away whopping at 32 speed. He is slightly faster than the Thunderer and should be able to catch them. There is Thunderers dotted all around the place, and indeed looks like some are actually going to end up in combat here with my own Thunderers, although getting a rear charge from Giant Slayers probably isn't going to be doing the best for them morale. And my Thunderers actually decide, you know what, we don't even want to be here. We're going to run out from that combat before turning to re-engage once more. Belegar and the Thane still looking very healthy, but we have some pretty healthy units of Dwarf Warriors dotted around as well. And in the back line, Felix is quite happily munching on the Ulfar Raiders here, doing a pretty decent job, up to 20 kills, and this is the kind of situation he is designed for, as he cleaves his way through this infantry, which certainly is no pushover, but of course Felix will be regenerating as well because of his lovely buff to heal heroes and lords. Longbeards are now chasing down some Thunderers, who are going to once again have to start to run for the hills, and Giant Slayers are being used to clear up all of these troops as well. I don't want any Thunderers coming back into the fray, as it is still pretty tight. Yes, the balance power is in my favour, but a Belegar Thane duo is pretty tasty and nasty to take down, and you perhaps go toe-to-toe with the mighty legendary White Dwarf himself. In the distance, it looks like Felix's armour has been debuffed here, but marked by Ulfar, by the Rangers, but still, there's many a dead Dowie that have been slain by his sword, and he's quite happily cuts them apart, especially now with the Thunderers, who he saved earlier, returning the favour and unleashing hell upon these raiders for dare attacking the White Dwarf's favourite manling. Over here, it looks like most of the Dwarfs are now in retreat from the kind of far superior numbered Dwarfs. There we go. And the Giant Slayers as well are quite happily chasing down routing units. So all that remains is the Thane and Belegar, but unfortunately for them, they're only getting shot in the back by Thunderers. And I can simply pull back with the White Dwarf, allow my Thunderers to do the death blow here. It looks like the Thane and Belegar know this, and are actually going to decide to retreat rather than fight, shaming their ancestors for longer to come. We have a little smoke bomb celebration coming down by Grombrindle. So a Pyrrhic victory there that very well played to weigh a really fun game in what was a incredibly close and intense best of 3. If you guys did enjoy, feel free to give the video a big old thumbs up and subscribe for more Total War Warhammer content. And we do drop videos weekly. I actually have a massive backlog right now. Loads of people have been sending in replays, and I've been off work a little bit, so I actually have a ton of my own battles. So apologies if I'm not getting to all the replays just yet, but please do keep sending them in. I do try to give everyone a chance and kind of get as many replays on the channel as possible. I was considering doing 2 videos a day, at least for a couple of days of the week, but I'm not sure if that'd be too much content for you guys and you get a bit bored. So do let me know. Anyway, as far as the builds do go, I think we went a far more traditional approach here, with a few little tinges of flair as well. Going for the mass cannons to try and counter any artillery I indeed bring myself, and then mass thunderers to deal the damage, while the dwarf warriors hold the line and pack a bit of a punch themselves. However, what I really like was the double great weaponed rangers used in that deep vanguard. Really caught me off guard. I luckily managed to spot them as they popped on top of some of my thunderers, and by that point I kind of overwhelmed a lot of the middle portion of his build. I managed to pull back some of my own warriors. As for my build, it's pretty cool stuff, pretty rock and roll. Dwarf warriors and longbeards with great weapons can certainly trade effectively up against the opponent, as well as the classic thunderers. Grombrindle has that useful smoke bomb, and Felix. So pretty standard stuff, but the real MVPs, 100% of the Giant Slayers, gain triple bronze chevron on one and double chevron on the other, 135 and 86 kills, the biggest kill counts in the battle, between them slaying 4 cannons as well as hunting down thunderers and allowing my longbeards from that point onwards to help grind out that centre pocket. Really good niche matchup for them, in my opinion. Normally I rate these Slayers quite a bit higher than Giant Slayers for kind of cost per what they do. However, I think, Giant Slayers in this matchup, with that extra speed and still having decent armor penetration, they are perfect in this match. And this is an idea completely borrowed, I'm going to say, rather than stolen, from the mighty Grombrindle, one of the best dwarf players around. And I saw him do it in a Dowie mirror match before, and I thought, you know what, that's incredibly clever. You basically have Dowie cavalry, which is something the dwarfs obviously lack. And it's kind of unexpected. People don't see it coming, and it seems to work quite well. Anyway, guys, hope you did enjoy. If you want to get involved, send me replays and hop on like events and stuff I host. Feel free to join my Discord. There's a link down below, as well as a link to my Patreon, sponsorships, and all that kind of stuff, if you do want to support the channel in any other way. Anyway, guys, until next time, peace, peace. And as always, stay awesome.